You're listening to China Africa Talk.
Jambo, ni Bridget akikuletea kipindi kinachohusiana na China na Afrika.
Vous écoutez le dialogue sino-africain avec Bridget.
Everything China, everything Africa.
Olá, você está ouvindo China Africa Talk com Bridget.
سيداتي وسادتي مرحبا بكم في الحوار الصيني العربي مع بريدجيت.
It's great to have you back on the program. This is China Africa Talk. I'm your host, Bridget Mutambirwa, coming to you from the Chinese capital in Beijing with more discussions on what's happening with China and Africa from a Chinese and African perspective. The Global Leaders Meeting on Women marks another milestone in advancing gender equality worldwide. Held in Beijing from October 13th to 14th, the two-day event brought together a diverse range of global leaders, among them Gertrude Mongella, Secretary General of the historic 4th United Nations World Conference on Women held in Beijing in 1995. Widely regarded as a landmark in the global women's movement, the 1995 conference adopted the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, which has since served as a blueprint for promoting women's rights and gender equality across the world. In an exclusive interview with China Africa Talk, Gertrude Mongella reflects on the defining moments of the 1995 conference and shares her insights from this year's meeting. She also opens up about her personal journey as a female leader and how the next generation of women can continue the pursuit of a fairer, more equal world. Ambassador Mongella, thank you for joining us on China Africa Talk.
Thank you. I'm so happy that you invited me to this session.
Firstly, let me say welcome back, Ambassador. 30 years ago, you served as Secretary General for the 4th World Conference on Women held in Beijing, which is a milestone in global women's affairs. Now, since then, you've been affectionately called Mama Beijing in Tanzania. Could you take us back to that historic moment? What were some of the key highlights of that conference, and how do you see its enduring legacy today?
I think the word Mama Beijing is great because people associate me with the Beijing conference. And sometimes when you serve and there is a legacy, it is very satisfying because putting together a conference like the United Nations 4th World Conference on Women, which was held in Beijing, it was a big task. It required a lot of energy, sacrifice, sleepless night, challenges. So I think it's worth being known as Mama Beijing because it's sort of, I participated in creating the Beijing results, and that's the platform for action which we unanimously accepted and adopted. The 4th World Conference, that's why it's called the 4th, because the first one is the United Nations Conference on Women was held in Mexico, and then it was held in Copenhagen to evaluate how far the world had changed as far as the results of Copenhagen were concerned, because there were 3 general themes which still remain: peace, development, and equality.
Right.
And Copenhagen was to assess how far we have gone with the 3 themes. But yet we had a 3rd conference in Nairobi, the forward-looking strategies, to see how we can speed up the implementation of the agreed principles on the development and advancement of women. And then this was the 4th one. And the 4th one has been the greatest. It has brought together so many people worldwide, so many governments, 189 governments, and so many groups, religious, political groups, non-governmental organizations, civil society. Everyone was in Beijing. And in total, the attendance of Beijing in Huairu with the NGOs and the government in Beijing, we had 50,000 people. Huge, but the topic was also huge. And then in this reflection, so many things came up. So many of the things were tackled during the preparations.
Right.
Because we had 2.5 years of preparations. And that we made committees to address the issues. We also looked into so many cultures, political systems, and I was able to travel and touch base with the leaders because I believed without the leaders' understanding and the government's understanding, we could not make it in Beijing.
Right.
So I traveled. There's no place which I didn't touch on this planet. So it is a conference which made me travel a lot. And in that case, then, I became an international citizen. And fortunately, I had no eating taboos, so it was comfortable for me to travel. And also, I was not inhibited in terms of networking with people. So it really made me an international global citizen. And I also learned to appreciate other people's cultures, beliefs, and the way of living. So Beijing really made me a new person. At the end of it, I was a new Gertrude Mongella, and that's why I became Mama Beijing.
Yes, those times I was still young at grassroots level. Back in Africa, that conference had a lot of impact because I remember even just in households, you'd hear husbands saying to their wives, "So you now think you're special, you went to the Beijing conference," you know. Women felt so empowered. I think that's one conference that a lot of women still remember.
Yes.
Even if they didn't go there, but that's one conference that they know.
Yes, we did the mobilization in the secretariat. We planned to mobilize the world. And because without people knowing and understanding, how can they implement? So we put together the organization in a way that the Beijing conference preparatory meetings went from grassroots to national level, to regional levels, and to the global level. And all institutions of the UN were involved. So if it's an issue of the girl child, it was discussed through UNICEF at all levels, in order to make people understand the concept. Why do we have the theme of the girl child? Because a woman starts like a girl. So if a woman is marginalized, if the girl does not get the education, how do you expect her to emerge from poverty? So you have to start from zero. And we found out even in some cultures, people just go and use the scientific knowledge to know whether the pregnancy is a boy or a girl. And they would be discriminated before they are even born. So the girl child became very important. The poverty question became very important. In the world, the poorest of the poor are women all over the world. So we had to really prepare in a very thorough way. And we also involved meetings of youth. At every regional conference, we asked the youth also to have their own gatherings so that they can look at the platform for action and put input. So we had regional conferences for the youth in Africa, youth in the Arab world, youth in Europe, youth in Asia, in Latin America. So the youth had an input to the conference because I did recognize that without the youth understanding, we never make it when we come to implementation.
Right. The Fourth World Conference on Women adopted the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, unanimously endorsed by 189 countries. How did this mark a turning point in the global roadmap for gender equality?
Because after evaluating Mexico, Copenhagen, and Nairobi, then we found out that they had remained documents. They had never left the desk to be disseminated. So what we were looking for was how do we disseminate the decisions made in Beijing to go and affect government, individual men and women, and the change of cultures, change of political systems, economic and political systems. We needed to change all those. So that's why the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action was widely disseminated, not only after it was adopted, but while we were developing that document. We kept on sharing, getting ideas, taking in ideas, and having meetings and committee meetings at different levels to discuss the agenda. So by the time we came to Beijing, a lot of the issues identified were known to the many delegates and had been also discussed at the different levels of society.
To move on to our next question there, Ambassador Mongella, looking at Africa specifically, how has the Beijing Declaration Platform for Action influenced the African Union and regional organizations and national governments in advancing women's development and empowerment when we tone it down to Africa?
When we were leaving Beijing, African nations said we have to take Beijing home.
Okay.
So that's where everybody, when you refer to this conference, it's the Beijing conference.
Right.
Are we taking it home? Are we taking our homework? So I felt every individual should have homework to do. Governments should all have their own homework. And institutions and at all levels. So this encouragement of taking Beijing home was also a method of this information dissemination. I'll give you an example. When I arrived in Dar es Salaam after I completed my mission in New York, then I had also an opportunity to bring Beijing home because I thought I owed it to my country for the education they had provided me, my preparation as an individual, my skills. I owe it to Tanzania, a poor country but could sacrifice to develop a little girl like me. So I had to bring Beijing home. I took the declaration and the platform and handed it over to my president. At that time, it was Benjamin Mkapa, who was the head of state, and he received me. And Tanzania decided to say they were going to concentrate on 4 areas: education, health, economic empowerment, and violence against women. So they said if they deal with those, they'll be able to make, and poverty also was included. So after I brought the Beijing home, then it also vibrated Tanzania to pay attention and to take action at different levels. In fact, in Tanzania, we had gender focal points at every ministry. And every place we had a focal point, even in the police system, because we realized women could not speak their minds, or children, if they are just in an open sort of court. But with the special focal points, they could be listened to and guided on how to deal with their problems. So this changed Africa a lot. So even in the AU, there was a special department, and it still is, which deals with the women. The implementation of Beijing definitely is one of the roadmap for the African Union. So we asked the Beijing Platform for Action to be domesticated in every society, in every nation, so that we can see, package, and then take action. So that has really helped Africa to look into the legal systems, to look into the political systems, and with that gender sort of masculinity which exists in Africa, men are not as bad as we think. It's because they were socialized to think they are the best. And you know who did the socialization? The mothers. So it was not the fault of the boys, it was the fault of the mothers, whom we kept on saying, if you want to think you are the right mother, then you make sure that your boy is masculine and is not equal to a woman. So this is another thing, psychological and cultural. All these things are affected, and we needed to look into how to change them. So the AU has done quite a lot. Even putting in place the resolution 1325, which recognizes the role of women in peace issues and conflict resolution. And that has been there now for 25 years. So we have seen so many things develop in different systems, in governments, in our own community work. So many things have changed. The number of girls in schools. The governments looked into the school systems to see how can they bring in more girls. It meant budgeting.
Right.
So many of the things for the Beijing implementation of the Beijing platform depend on the economic power of the nation too. If you do not allocate resources to the solution, let's say, of the problems of the health of a woman, to reduce maternal health and maternal deaths, you cannot make it. So it's not an easy job just to get into it and do it. Some of it will require resources, both human and financial resources.
30 years later, you are back in Beijing for the Global Leaders Meeting on Women. How do you view the timing of this gathering, and what have been some of your takeaways from this year's meeting so far, especially on President Xi Jinping's keynote speech?
First of all, I was so excited when I was invited to come to this meeting, because I thought, again, it's a time for reflection.
Right.
And taking again place in a country where the Declaration and Platform for Action was born. And I must say very frankly that China has done a lot of contribution to the world by hosting the two conferences, so that we could develop the roadmap, which is the platform. At the same time, now we are reviewing the implementation. And at the end of the conference, I remember I said, a revolution has begun.
Yeah.
There is no going back. And we are not going back. And at this conference, it was very clear through the statements of delegates that we are not going back. In fact, we now know we have a long way to go. The road can be rough and sometimes very challenging, but we are still on the right road to the development of a world of equality between men and women, a world of peace and development where both of us can enjoy being this planet. And I always believe we are not invitees on the planet.
Right, right.
Women are not invitees. We belong to this planet. And therefore, it's up to us to work with men and men to work with women to ensure that we succeed. His keynote speech yet is another document which has summarized very beautifully what we've gone through in these 30 years. But he has gone on to suggest some of the ways we should use in order to speed up the implementation of Beijing.
Right.
Not only that, he has also offered some support, not only for the women in China, but also worldwide, to make sure that some of the projects are implemented which will make the lives of women better and men in general. And I think I was very impressed by that commitment. And that's what we need for our leaders and governments to commit themselves to this noble work which we've started 30 years ago in order to speed up the work we started. Otherwise, without that strong commitment and partnership, sometimes we forget that the world is one. So China teaming up, for example, with the African countries will be able to transfer some of the knowledge, technological knowledge, create some of the technologies together with the African countries, and also maybe scientific knowledge which is already in China can also be shared. And it shouldn't only be limited to China. The networking, the partnership should go beyond each country. For example, in Africa, we have to develop our internal trade systems. We could do better, could look better how we can work with China and how China can work with us. And also we can partner with other loving countries in the world. We will look at partners because it's partnership. We have to move now from, I think what the president was saying, we have to move away from dependency to partnership.
Right.
So that we work together, and that's what is lacking. We are on the same globe, but we are not in proper partnership. So that is a very strong statement he made about partnership, about the need to support women and to put in position governance that cares for all people.
From a global perspective, Mama Mongella, what do you see as the greatest challenges still facing women today? What should be done to address those challenges?
Those challenges need a lot of work, very challenging tasks. Sometimes it's dismantling the systems. For example, with the political systems, the way they were put together, the women were not a priority in taking part in decision making. So we have been marginalized for a long time. As a result, many women are very ignorant about political activities. I have experienced being a parliamentarian of 3 parliaments. I've been first a member of parliament of the East African Legislative Assembly when I just completed university, and I became a member of parliament of my own national parliament, and then I became the member of the Pan-African Parliament, and fortunately I became the first president of the Pan-African Parliament. So the challenging thing is, first of all, yourself.
Right.
Before you fill in the form to ask for the candidature, you always feel, am I going to manage? So that is step number 1 is for the women themselves. To trust themselves, to change their mindset, and to say, we are going to do it. And sometimes the women discourage other women.
Yes.
You try to do something, they say, that is for men. But you have to break that type of thinking. Then you come to the next stage where then you go and meet their counterpart, where they think you are just getting into the wrong sort of direction by trying to be this and that. But you have to do it. But the most difficult thing is then when you are there, do you perform? That's a question. Should not forget that you are there and then you think you are big, you are high, you cannot do that. You have to continue being a woman, believing in being a woman, and doing things better than if you were not a woman.
As the refined product.
Yes, as the refined product.
This year you turned 80 with a lifelong career dedicated to women's rights. Looking back, how do you reflect on your own role and contributions to the cause of women's empowerment?
I'm so happy to have reached 80 because for an African woman it's very challenging. I started like a girl child, like any other girl child in Africa, with a woman in the village who has no facilities of diapers and all this. The mother does her best to take care of you, to raise you. I have escaped the challenges of having parents who don't understand the value of education. So my parents did their best to sacrifice and give whatever they could give to make me study to the maximum of my capacity, and that's the university.
Right.
I could hear my father saying, I'm prepared to sacrifice anything for you to go as far as you want. So that was very encouraging. I was like to have such parents. My mother was a role model, hard-working woman. So that's my childhood was in the safe hands, and then moved on to secondary school and university. And fortunately, I fell in love with a very understanding husband, because the type of work I've been doing, no man could tolerate such a wife.
Sure.
You leave sometimes the children for him to take care of, and sometimes you are not there when you are supposed to be there. But he was very, very supportive all the time. and sometimes seeing all the challenges you go through, the marginalization you suffer, but he was with me all the time. And he just passed on the 31st of May this year after being together for 56 years. So that I was lucky in that capacity. I got the education, I got the right husband. Then I got the right country, Tanzania, under Julius Kambarage Nyerere, who were brought up to feel independent, to be able to do things and to maximize the potentials we got from our nation. And I remember he even came to Beijing with us in the Tanzanian delegation.
Okay.
He was there to support Gertrude Mongella as one of the daughters of Tanzania. So that was the right country. A right country for me to be Secretary General, because Julius Nyerere and Mao Zedong had worked together since our independence to develop Tanzania. I can remember a few industries put together, like the textile industries, the farm implements, the railway line, which helped to liberate the southern parts of Africa. So I say I've been moving in the right direction. I've been moving in the environment which was conducive, but also challenging.
So, Mama Mongella, what messages would you share with today's younger women to ensure that 30 years from now, they may live in a fairer and more equal world?
What I would say, I would just caution them. They have to be careful.
Right.
We have worked to give the roadmap. If they do not implement that roadmap, what next? They'll go back to where we were. Marginalization, violence against women has not decreased. In fact, with the new technologies, with new discoveries of digital knowledge, they will be more even affected as women. So they have to be really, really careful that they keep on the road map which we have created. But the other thing is they have to work. They have to value themselves as women. And valuing themselves does not mean that you ignore the other people, because you don't want to do to others what you didn't want to be done.
Yes.
You can't marginalize men, because we hated the marginalization, violence, and all these things, and the lack of resources. And they cannot wish the men to be like that. Because what we found out during the preparation is that if we work together in partnership, we speed up the actions and the results. So the girls of today and boys together should really use the roadmap to create a peaceful, developed, equal societies in their environment.
Mama Mongella, thank you so much for your time and for this enlightening discussion, and all the best in the work that you have ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Listeners, you can subscribe to our online newsletter on CGTN or Substack to get more insights on China-Africa relations. Just search China-Africa Talk. For now, it's goodbye. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post it on social media or leave a rating and review. Thanks again. See you next time.